Hello and welcome to Dungeon Coach Gaming. I'm here to coach up your UI, make it more efficient, and let you be able to have more fun and look pretty sweet while you're doing it. This is a very basic, very clean UI. All I have are my rune bar right here, and it's gonna go from this to this. I should be showing a picture right now. I haven't seen it yet because we haven't made it yet. I'm going to, from scratch, make with this little kit right now. I'm gonna show you. If you open up weakauras/WA, I have a Dungeon Coach WeakAuras setup thing for you guys. It'll be linked in the description. It's a little kit right here. It has exactly all you need to be able to make any WeakAura for any class, really. Comment below if I don't have something that you do have for a class, because I don't play a lot of casters. Maybe there's something for casters, but I pretty much have the full thing of any type of thing you'd ever want. A resource bar. Sure enough, I'm going to need a resource bar, or a type of bar where I have some sort of buff or some sort of debuff I want to track, and it has a vertical bar on the target. A visual aura, some sort of aura that pops up like the default UI does for World of Warcraft. You know, it does. It has these nice little looking things. You can make your own or do your own things with it. That can pop up based on certain things. A standard ability cooldown. Super basic, but there's some cool things you can do with it. Glow active abilities is whenever, if it's off of cooldown, it's glowing, because this is something that you should use right away and you shouldn't sit on it, right? Some things in lots of different classes have 2 charges, and whenever you use 1 charge, and you can use another charge, but then whenever you have 2 charges it glows, you can set it up to do that, which is kind of leading into glow on 2 charge abilities, which is what this is. So I'm actually going to put those 2 right next to each other. There's also different abilities you can have where if they have some sort of trigger that happens, it glows or something. You can get a use of it for free. For Death Knights, a Death and Decay, if you have certain things happen, a Death and Decay, you can pop and have a free one, and it glows on that condition. So very useful things, not just your standard abilities. Yeah, you can totally make standard abilities, but I'm trying to help you go one step farther but not get too complicated, right? This linked right here, this little setup will be down in the description. If you do want to help support what I do and help these videos, and these videos really do help you, you can support me on Patreon, and I have a full access to every single thing I have of my full WeakAuras. I'm going to have the big pictures there, but if you want to make this yourself, this is 100% linked down in the description. You can copy this for yourself. From here, this is going to be where we're starting from, because right now our template we have going is this right here, which is a bunch of nothing right now. So if we back out of everything, we're going to be able to see where our rune bar is. We're going to need to make a actual resource bar. So here we go. So opening up WeakAuras, first off, this rune bar right here I got from Luxthos. There's Luxthos is the best WeakAura maker in all of World of Warcraft. So this WeakAura package I got from him. I stripped off everything else because a lot of the other stuff he does doesn't speak to me. I like the look of it, but it's a little too complicated for me to be able to make my own and be able to update and make the changes I want to make too. So I just stole the rune bar, just the rune bar, and it's right now it looks a little weird, and I'm actually gonna do something to help me out with that. All right, so what I did here real quick just to solve this problem, because whenever I'm in the WeakAuras it collapses, but whenever I'm out of it, it doesn't. What I'm gonna do is I created a temporary bar right here, and then just made it the exact same size of that, so I can now see whenever I'm building my bars within the WeakAuras that I can actually know where to position things. There you go, just worked around that. So what I've done here is I have a spreadsheet. This spreadsheet are all my key bindings for my Death Knight, my Demon Hunter, my Priest, and my Death Knight on Classic. So all the buttons and keybinds. I have a whole video I'm going to be doing on keybinds, but this is what I'm going to be looking at here off to the side. These are all the abilities that I want to be able to make WeakAuras for. I have regular cooldowns. All of these are just, I want to see the icon, and I want it to go away whenever it's not there, and it'll show up whenever it is. Awesome, great. But I do want to still see it grayed out, just so it doesn't pop out of nowhere. I do like to see when it's on cooldown, when it's coming back, all that kind of stuff, right? I want to see those things. Then I got the vertical bars, which is what we also talked about, and I showed you on the other things we have over there. Horizontal bars, which are blood tap. I'm going to do something special for that one. Special procs, like we also talked about, and let's go. So one thing I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to open up my dominoes frames, but this is a separate add-on where I have my action bars. There's a fading section that I have. I'm going to unfade them because I have them fade out of combat. So now this is what my UI looks like behind the scenes. These are all my bindings of what my buttons are, and this is the A, Q, W, R, all the way around, so I can see where my bindings are so that my UI can reflect that a little bit. So my WeakAuras are going to be positioned in a similar way of how my brain is positioned with my keyboard. So if I have abilities, if you use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would then have it in that order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it mirrors what you have going on, what your action bars would look like if you were to use a default UI. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make all the standard, all the basic ones. So standard ability, I'm going to duplicate this. I duplicate this. I'm going to call this Vampiric Blood, Vamp Blood right now. And I'm going to bring this on down and add this to my, I'm going to put it at the top of everything. Vamp Blood. Awesome, great. So now this is obviously not Vampiric Blood because this is default. This is a Sigil of Misery from a Demon Hunter, but that doesn't matter. matter. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to move this over here so we have this in the right spot. In this new thing, I'm also going to have a full Weakora guide in the description for the general description, like the very, very basics of Weakauras and how to kind of like a tour guide through the whole thing. But this is kind of where everything's at. All of it's done, taken care of for you. I have the little thing right here. I can move around wherever I want. All of the zoom, 30% makes it look nice and clean. I have the auras and borders around it. Everything looks great. So I have the heights pre-selected already. I can change the height of this thing and where it's offset at. You can see that it changes every time I move that. So everything's good there. I need to go to triggers is where I need to go. So trigger 1 is going to be the spell and its cooldown, and it must be an exact match of, and I'm going to highlight this and type in vampiric blood. And then, oh my god, it automatically updates and changes. How great is that? And the conditions are, whenever I don't have the resources to be able to do this, it's going to go blue, and that's not true in all cases. Condition 2 is if it's on cooldown, it's going to desaturate, which just means turn gray. That's what all these conditions mean. The last condition is if the spell is in range, it's going to be false, and it's going to turn red. There's no range on this spell, but it's whenever you have, if you have an offensive attack thing and you're out of range, it's going to turn red because you're out of range. So there's that. So all of that's taken care of, and that's what these mean. All this it means is the trigger is insufficient resources, and if the answer to that question is yes, it has insufficient resources, which means you're out of resources, then it turns it blue. But again, you don't have to know about any of these things to make all this work. And there we go. We have the vampiric blood. I'm going to check the load conditions. Everything seems fine there, and I'm going to leave the load conditions alone for now. This now is vampiric blood. Oh my god, I can move around, put it wherever I want. I have one ability on my bars now. What I am going to also do here is I'm going to turn on all of these bars so I can constantly see where these things are. What I'm also going to do, I'm going to make this a little smaller so I can get this out of the way of my UI. Vampiric blood, I know, is my A button, so whenever I press A on my keyboard, I press vampiric blood. So that's going to be the farthest button I usually have here on my keybinds. But one thing I just realized also is I need my resource bar. I liked the order of my things to go my rune bar, my resource bar, and then at the very underneath that are all my abilities, right? So I do think this bar is a little bit low, so I'm going to move that up actually by grabbing the entire group and moving the entire group up. And again, you can do this yourself whenever you have the group. You go down here to Y offset, and you can Y offset this thing a little bit higher. So it starts off at default at 0. I'm going to scooch it up just a little bit. Okay, that looks great. We're going to have 20 offset, just bring it down a little bit. Okay, cool. One thing we're going to need now before this vampiric blood can be fit in wherever it's going to be fitting in, I need a resource bar. So I'm going to go up here to my default WeakAuras setup. I'm going to grab a resource bar. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to call it runic power. And I'm going to drag the runic power bar down here. And I'm going to put this actually on the top. So the order of this, actually, I'm going to have this be the runes are on top, and then after the runes are going to come the runic power, and then all of the abilities. So it stays in the same order that I'm seeing it right here. Runic power is going to be this bar right here. I'm going to match this up directly underneath these runes, leaving a little bit of space there. And as you can see, you can move these little arrows up and down. They move these things up and down. So I'm going to get it just a bit where there's just a little crease. And then now I'm going to go into this runic power bar, and I got to change some things. So first of all, visually, I do want to go ahead and keep going with that. The bar color, I like for it to be a teal. I like my runic power bar to be like a tealish color, maybe a little bit darker. That looks good right there. Background's done. That's really the only thing I need to change here. I like, you can change the way it looks. You can change the gradient of the bar, of how the bar looks. I like smooth version 2. Done, simple as that. X offset, we're going to put that at 0, so we're nice and in the center. Also, side note, if you hold down the shift button, it takes away all of the distracting things. So you see how it's not matching up to where my rune bar is? I need this to be a little bit wider. So I need the width right here to be a little bit wider. So we're going to go ahead and guess here. I love playing this game. This is a great game. 80, a little bit more than that, and then we're going to go 84. And that actually looks pretty dang solid. And I'm going to actually, I think I'm just going to scoot it to the left one scooch. And there we go. Matched up our rune bar. And the one thing we have to do is go to trigger. All we're going to be messing with is the trigger and the condition. So in the trigger, I'm going to go to power, which is the resource we're talking about. Player, which is me. I want my power. And then I'm going to do runic power. There it is, runic power, and only cost of cast. Okay, cool, and great. So for these conditions, if you want to just have a regular power bar, delete the condition, and then it's just regular, and it's normal, and everything's fine. I do like to do this, though, because certain abilities activate on a certain number of power. So really for Death Knights, its Death Strike is 45 runic power. So if I'm at 44 runic power, it's a big difference between 44 and 45. For myself right here, for Demon Hunters, it's 30. So I have it set to 30. But what I want to do is I want to have when my power is less than 45, right? So when it's less than 45, I want it to be like, so 45 is cool, but if it's less than 45, that's not cool. So I want the bar to change color. If this happens, then the bar changes color to that same color we have, that same teal color is kind of where we're at, but I want it to be darker. I want it to be kind of like this. So that's what the runic power is going to look like. So here we go. Let's have all this go. The load's fine. The display's fine. Now we have a runic power bar. Oh my gosh, look at this. How cool is that? So whenever I build up runic power now, I can start tagging stuff. See how it's like really dull blue? It's almost like the same color as that red. So it's, oh, but now it's bright. Now it's bright. Look at that. Oh, I can use Deathstrike now. I can use Deathstrike now. Oh, but now I can't use Deathstrike now because it's too dark. So now, oh, but now I can. You see where I'm at? See where I'm at? Absolutely love that. I do that for every single one of my classes that I mess around with this for. So back to the Weakauras now. I do want that to be a little bit brighter, but I almost can't get it any more brighter. So I guess we're going to have to rock with that brightness right there. But now I have a runic power bar, and now we can go back to my vampiric blood situation. Also, as you know, I just tried to grab it right there. See how I can't grab it? It's like stuck. When you go in here, if you click and on-click these things, now you can open them. So every time if I'm really messing with them, I go in here, I open and close, and then I can, this is where everything's at. Also, I wish there was a undo function in Weakauras, but I don't know of anyone. Right now, I don't know where everything's going to go. Again, I have everything I need. I need to see everything in front of me to be able to mess around with this thing. So I'm just going to put this vampiric blood right here underneath my runic power bar. Also for this runic power bar, it's a little thick. I'm going to bring it in just a little bit, make it a little skinnier. Okay, cool, great. Now my vampiric blood's going to sit right there. Great. So now, once I've brought in that standard ability from up here, I'm now just going to right click duplicate, and I'm going to bring in all of the rest of these abilities. Bone Storm, Abomination Limb, right? All these different things that I'm going to have that I'm going to set up. I'm going to fast forward through this part, but I'm going to put all these in here, and you can do the same thing for your character of whatever abilities you want to have on here that you want to see. Because for me, I don't need to see Heartstrike because I can see my runes. I don't need to see Morrowind because I can see my runes. I don't need to see certain things on here that cost runes, and I only need to see the things that are cooldown based. So we're going to speed this up here and add in all of the basic abilities. But again, all I'm doing is typing in the name, Bone Storm. This part doesn't matter. This has nothing to do. It's just literally you titling it. I'm going to go to the trigger. That's all I'm changing. Type in Bone Storm, which is apparently one word. I've misspelled that a bunch of times. Bone Storm's good to go right there. The conditions are fine, and that's really all I have to do. So then you right click it again, duplicate, and I go to the next one, Abomination Limb, and so on. Real quick tip right here, if you want to do the next one, so if you don't want to type and you want to actually help yourself, advance ed. Spelling's hard for me, so I don't like spelling. I'm going to show you a little shortcut. If you hold down Control and Shift and press backspace, it highlights everything for you. Then press Control C. You can do this in like any sort of typing thing as well. Press Enter, but as you notice right now, whenever I press Enter, it doesn't let me do it because I have another Weakaura named that. So if you want to go Control V and press space one time, it lets you save it because Death's Advance with a space is different than Death's Advance, whatever. So then when you go into the triggers here, I already have Death's Advance highlighted and saved. I can press that and now it's Death's Advance. I can keep going to the next one. All right, I have all of my basic ones ready now, and you can see they're all here, all of the generic ones that I want. Now, the next ones I'm going to go ahead and do. The vertical bars are going to put up here, and those are like buff things, and like while I'm playing, I want to see those buffs kind of pop up so I can see it. But I want to really, really kind of hone in and focus on these action bars down here. So next one I'm going to do are the special proc things like the Death and Decay. So I'm going to go up here and grab the special proc thing, Glowing Proc Ability. So I'm going to right-click this, duplicate it, and this is going to be Death and Decay for the sake of this, but obviously it can be different for you. Anytime it doesn't accept your name, Death and Decay, you just press space a couple times and there you go for the name. So Death and Decay, I'm going to grab this, bring it down here. Now for Death and Decay, this is what it looks like. You can see it glowing right now. This is Penance from my priest. And Penance has certain things. Whenever you do certain things with Penance, it gains a buff of some kind that makes it stronger. And I have a glow pop up there whenever that happens. So you're going to take this and change it to what fits you in your class. You know what abilities do these things. Display is all the same. Everything's normal. All of the size and 34 for all the height. That's my default for all of that. The only thing you're messing with, again, are the triggers. So the trigger in this case is going to be the cooldown of what? In this case for me, it's death and decay. Now it changes to death and decay. Great. But now this is a very, very terrible macro right now because it's combining a death knight and a priest. But that's all that's happening in trigger 1. Trigger 1, and triggers just set up what's happening. Again, you can watch that video on that. Don't worry about this. Triggers are the cooldown of what spell? This is the cooldown. There's trigger 1. Trigger 2 is the aura of a player, being you, if you have a buff of some kind. We all know whenever we have these abilities, there's a certain buff that pops up on our character, and that buff is what tells us, oh, we can use this special cool thing. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that buff. For Death Knights, and you can check your own spell list ability as well, and if you go to Blood, there's something called Crimson Scourge right here. So Crimson Scourge is your auto attacks have a chance to give a free death and decay, but it's called, the buff you passively get is called Crimson Scourge. So I'm going to go in here and change Power of the Dark Side. That was the Shadow, or the Discipline Priest thing. I'm going to change it to Crimson Surge. Okay, so now it's Crimson Scourge. There's the aura name, and that's what's going to make the glow, because, and that's all you need to know right there. And this says own only, so it's only my Crimson Scourge, and that's the only way you could possibly get that buff. But that's all for the triggers. Now the conditions is where things get fancy, and if you don't care about what I'm about to say, la 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 la, because all this means, just to walk you through it, is whenever trigger 2, Trigger 1 was the spell. Trigger 2 is the buff, being Crimson Scourge. That's what we just set up. This is a language we're teaching it. We're talking about, hey, Trigger 1 is this, Trigger 2 is this, and now the conditions modify those triggers. So when Trigger 2 is activated, meaning we have this Crimson Scourge buff, and that's true. True being, yes, you do have the buff. False being, no, you don't have the buff, right? If we have the buff, then it's going to glow. Very simple, right? So that's condition 1. Condition 2 is if it's on cooldown, if the spell, because remember, trigger 1 was the spell, trigger 2 was the buff you get. If trigger 1, the spell is on cooldown, and the answer to that, is it on cooldown, is true or yes. Is it on cooldown? Yes. Then I want to gray it out and desaturate it. That's the same thing as before. Condition 3 is insufficient resources, and condition 4 is out of range. We've already talked about all those things. So now my Death and Decay should be good to go with that buff. The next one I'm going to do that's actually pretty important is Rune Tap. And so in this case, Fracture was the ability for the Demon Hunter that I have on this, but I'm going to duplicate this now, and I'm going to have this be Rune Tap. Okay, but I am going to add a little bit of a change to it. So I'm going to drag this down to my bar over here, get it nice and good. Now, here is where I'm going to, again, the display is all fine. Trigger 1, the spell is no longer Sheer or whatever, in Fracture if you have a talent. It's going to be Rune Tap. So that's trigger 1 is Rune Tap. That's all I really care about. And this show always means it always stays there. It's not going to fade or go away if I move it around. So that's trigger 1. Trigger 2 in this case actually doesn't matter, because if a player has a talent known of blood, that doesn't matter at all. So I'm deleting that trigger. But that's also helpful if you can kind of read this stuff. Again, I'm going to have a basic video down in the description for you to be able to kind of read what's happening here and understand, so not be so dang lost. So there we go. Condition 1 is going to be if the charges are equal to 2. Then it's going to glow. Wow, that's so nice. So if I have both charges of Rune Tap, it's going to glow. If I don't want it to glow, then I can uncheck that and just leave it alone, and we don't have to worry about that. Action button glow, and I could honestly delete this entire thing, but we're going to leave it on for right now. Condition number 2 is all of this. Again, all this edge cooldowns, and if it's between these other things, like, oh, don't even worry about all that. The charges are 0, it's going to desaturate. So if we have 0 charges, it's going to desaturate and be grayed out because we have nothing left, right? And condition 4 is if you're in combat, and this is nice because if you have a glow on it when it's at 2 charges, it's going to always be glowing, whether you're in combat or not. And that's super annoying, right? You're just sitting around town with a glowing thing telling you to press it, right? But this says if you're in combat, and the answer to that is no. No, I'm not in combat. Are you in combat? False. That means no, I'm not in combat. Then the glow is going to be off. You see how this is not checked? If it is checked, you see how it's constantly glowing now? I don't want that. We're done. All right, we're getting close. I had to move over here because that freaking mage is making a bunch of noise. Actually, if you see my Weakauras right now, I have a huge stack of Weakauras here of all the ones I made before. There's like 10 Weakauras underneath here. These is my special cooldown ones, and this is the one we just made. See how it has 2 there? It has 2 charges. But if I get in combat, now it's glowing and it's telling me I can use it, right? And I'm going to use it, okay? But in general, Rune Tap's not something I want to use all the time off of cooldown, or when I just want to keep popping it all the time. So I'm going to go into my Weakauras, I'm going to go down to my Rune Tap, I'm going to turn off and disable that glow section. So if I go to the conditions and go to that first condition where I said it glows whenever it's at 2 charges, I don't want that actually for this. I want to delete that. And then the last condition now where it says if in combat doesn't matter either, and then that's now gone, and now it's just 2 charges no matter what, and it just stays 2 charges no matter what. I can use it and it's fine. It shows me the cooldown on there, and if I use it again, it's grayed out. All right, for this next example, I want to use one of the things that has, if it's available, I want it to glow. Then that's one thing I think Dancing Rune Weapon is going to fit into that category. So I'm going to delete this one because I made that as the standard template that I have up here. But glow when active ability, I'm going to use that. I'm going to duplicate this, and this is going to be my Dancing Rune Weapon. So I'm going to grab this, drag it down here and to the very bottom, keep things nice and organized. And here's where I'm going to, again, only go to the triggers. I'm going to go to Dancing Rune Weapon. And everything else is fine. The conditions are if it glows and all that kind of stuff. Again, don't worry about the conditions, because now if Dancing Rune Weapon is available, I'm going to put it right here. If it's available, it's going to glow. Just like we said before, it doesn't have any charges or anything. But if it's available, it's glowing. You better use it. Okay, there we go. We finally have all of these things ready to go for our basic general abilities. The 2 things we have not done yet is my very special situation thing I'm going to do with Blood Tap. That thing is going to be visually nice to have horizontal progress bars. And then the vertical bars, which are going to be on the sides, the top left and right sides of my character, that are going to tell me when I have certain buffs active. So now how this is going to look, I'm going to grab this because I don't need to mess with this anymore, except for being able to mess with all of these things. I usually grab this and kind of stick it over in the corner over here. So all of these abilities are right here. Some of these abilities are here. I'm going to now be able to move them around in general. I'm not going to make them look really pretty yet. And we're just going to start doing this thing. So some of this is going to be fast forward. Some of this is going to be, I'll let you know. But here we go. Honestly, it's going to help my brain out to just sort these out. So I have movement and utility abilities. That's a utility taunt. That's a stun. I usually have my stuns kind of over here towards the right side. Mind freeze. And you see how these are also red? That's because I was out of range, whatever. The death grip is also going to be more of a utility thing over here, but I use my death grip on my mouse buttons, which I usually have my mouse over here. You see all these abilities? I usually have these on my mouse, and so I like to put them on the right-hand side because my right mouse hand is on the right side. Helps my brain. So I'm going to keep this over here to the right, and we're going to keep going through these. Again, friendly reminder, when you're doing this, scroll all the way up to the top of this thing, and you can click the eyeball twice so that it turns them all on. Once you've turned them all on, you can now individually mess with them and move them around like you're wanting. Sometimes that confused me a lot at the beginning. And now we at least got them all sorted. These buttons over here look very familiar to these buttons right here. I don't need to see Control Undead on my bars, and I don't need to see Death and Decay. I do like to pair over here with my actual damage rotation ability, so I probably want to put this one on the very, very edge of this right here, which probably means I want to put this right here, and then the Gorfiend's Grasp right there next to it, because that's similar. And the Mind Freeze, any sort of CC, I'll put down a little bit further. And now I perfectly, this is working out great. So these 3 abilities for Death Knights are AoE, and I like to have them So if I'm doing AoE pulls, then I see all of this right here. I can glance down really quickly and see that right there. Also, these are all my grips. Death Grip, Gorfiend's Grasp, and Abomination Limbs are all grips. So if I need to do that, they're all very similarly organized by my layout as well. These are 3 mouse buttons. I have one of these mouse buttons with all the mouses on the side. So these 3 buttons are all my mouse. This 3x3 grid is my 3x3 grid on my mouse buttons that I press with my thumb. So there's that. And then I also have my Mind Freeze I can put right here, and my Asphyxiate I can put right here. So those all nicely match up exactly with my... Now, this is kind of not exactly, because the Death and Decay goes here, because I think of that as more of a rotation ability, and all in here is my rotation abilities, but everything else falls in nicely. So, and then Fleshcraft is a tanking cooldown. I put my tanking cooldowns over here visually. As you can see, I've organized them over there. And then these are also tanking cooldowns right here, but they're in a different spot. I press these tanking cooldowns with different buttons. This is a mouse button. This is Shift R. This is Shift R. This is Shift G. That's very different than these mouse buttons, which is the A button right here, and these are very, very close together as far as my hand goes. So my brain is very nicely synced up with what I'm seeing in front of me. So I'm going to probably organize these together, and these up here are my mouse buttons as far as my mouse wheel scroll buttons, and then I have my tanking cooldown and movement stuff all here. All right, quick little update here. I have my two mains, Death Strike and Blood Boil. These are my two core rotation abilities. AoE all here is all fitting nicely underneath this bar. And then I have my 3 tanking cooldowns. So I have 2 rotational abilities, 3 AoE abilities, and 3 tanking abilities, all very much matched up with where my icons are as far as my bindings are, which now lets me be able to bring these things down. And I'm going to, let me see how it looks. Okay, I just had a breakthrough. Here we go. So I have all my things, all my stuff we just talked about here. My taunts and grips right here. My utility CC and interrupts right here. And then all of my all of my offensive dancing rune weapon cooldowns right here. These abilities are my mouse scroll abilities. Mouse scroll up, down, and that's all makes sense. Really good sense in my head right there. These two are my cooldown abilities, also tanking. So all my tanking cooldowns are right here. And if I'm taking a lot of damage, Death Strike. Also right here. So if I'm taking a lot of damage, I'm going to be using this. And also I can move this over because now I run into a weird problem here where I have my health bar and my health bar is going to look uneven and unbalanced and there's this big gap and that looks bad. So I'm going to move this over here to get it out of the way, and I'm going to move these over here because these are 2 movement abilities, Wraith Walk and Death Advance right here, and then I'm going to have my taunt ability that I'm going to put right here. And taunt's also similar to Death Grip, a utility type of situation, so that's fine. And then look, I can do this. I use shadowed unit frames, so then we're going to have a little mini shadowed unit frame scene here. I'm going to use shadowed unit frames. I'm going to unlock this bar, and I'm going to be able to move this bar up into position now. How great is that? So I just simply move it on up into position and get it right there. And in this case, I do need to make it a little bit wider. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider. And now we lock the frames, and oh my god, look how good that looks. Also, a quick thing here, I'm going to have full videos on everything here as far as how all these add-ons work. I do have my mount action bar right here. This is a single button for my mount that fades whenever I'm in combat. I'm going to put it right here to kind of match it up inside here so it looks nice whenever we're right there. And if I right click it, I can scale it down to really match the size of these other things and embed it right there. And cool, done. And look at that. Look at that. Now the next bars I want to add in here are these vertical bars. So I'm going to grab one of these vertical bars from my setup action here. Duplicate it, and this one's going to be Bone Storm because I want to know how long my Bone Storm's lasting. Name it Bone Storm. I'm going to scroll it all. Now, actually, I'm going to put this at the very, very top of this thing because whenever I see my UI, it's going to be towards the top of this thing. Again, clicking the eyeballs, and now I can grab it. Now, visually, where these things go, I'm going to have to be playing around with that here in a minute. But I have Bone Storm right here. All you have to do is go to the trigger. Again, this is an aura on the player that's a buff. It's an aura on the player that's a buff, and we're going to do Bone Storm. Now it's Bone Storm. The one thing you will have to do here, because this is the trigger, and there's only one trigger, the condition, there are no conditions. It's as simple as this. Everything's done for you. The display is something I'm going to change. I'm going to go up here to the bar color, and I'm going to change it to something that feels more like Bone Storm, which is about right here. That's Bone Storm. Actually, probably lighter than that. There we go, Bone Storm. So now that's Bone Storm done. I can now duplicate that, continue this process on with Abomination Limb. I'm going to title these Abomination Limb Bar so that I title them differently than actually just calling them Bone Storm, because then that could get confusing in the thing here. So I'm going to go Abomination Limb. I'm going to change the trigger. This is a buff that I have, and this is Abomination Limb. And I again want to change that display color to not be blue. I want to have it be a creepy green color, a little bit darker. Looks good. There it is. And we're going to make the rest of these. Okay, now that those are done, I'm going to organize them in the same way. Wraithwalk is a movement ability. I'm going to put this over here. Bone Storm's an offensive AoE. I'm going to put this over here. Again, turning on all of these so that they're all on so I can see them. Icebound Fortitude, defensive, and on the left side also. Lichborn, same thing. Defensive, mobility. Offensive, interesting spot, but probably going to be on the very inside here because this is technically a defensive cooldown. Vampiric Blood's also defensive cooldown. Fleshcraft also. Abomination Limb we're going to put over here with the AoE, and there we go. So I have defensive over here and mobility over here, and I kind of want to see where I want to put these things, how high. My bars right here, I still don't know how high this is. Again, I'm going to be adjusting this more minutely here in a second, but I don't want this to be too much in my way here, so whenever I'm attacking this, turned off the Weakauras 1 second. Okay, so if I was hypothetically attacking something so I don't enter combat here, I would probably want, again, to turn all of these on, and I want to be able to get this out of the way so I can see how high we're going to go here. First of all of these, I want the Wraith Walk to probably be the farthest outmost one, and then this one to be here, and then which one's on a less of a cooldown? Bone Storm's on a less of a cooldown, so I want this to be the leading one right here. So I probably want to put this about this high and about this far outside here, and I think that's a pretty good spot for it. So I want to put it maybe a little farther out right there. So now I want to match up all of these to be alongside that, and it looks nice and good here. And again, we can get specific here in a minute. Now I'm going to look at this Bone Storm. I'm going to go to the display options, and this is where we're going to fine tune things here. But you can mess with the width and height of these things all across the board, but the X offset and the Y offset is kind of what I'm looking at here. So I'm doing 170, let's call it ahead and call it 172. Enter, and then we're going to do the Y offset of 42. So I can override that, type it in there, and it makes these little adjustments and it puts in a certain spot. So now for the other one over on the other side, which I want that to be Dancing Rune Weapon, I'm going to put -142, -142, -172, and then we have 42 on this spot right here. I put negative on there because the center is 0, right side's positive, left side is negative, and now this is the exact same distance apart from here, and I can now organize the rest of these things. Vampiric Blood, I'm looking at these, I'm going to probably put them in this order right here. So I'm going to have my Dancing Rune Weapons, very important. To the right of that, or the left of that's going to be Vampiric Blood right there. Next up is Anti-Magic Shell, all mirroring this, and then the next one, where we at here, probably Icebound Fortitude right there, and organize them as such. Nice. Now I can already tell right now, even just looking at this is a little bit wide. I'm probably going to bring this side in a little bit because this is just a lot of stuff going over here. I might even take off Fleshcraft and I do not care to even show this at all and bring these in a little bit. But let's keep tweaking with it. All right, after tweaking some things around here, I got some things figured out now. I brought these closer in. I practiced on the training dummies with these off and seeing how if they came in too close. I might once I get into a dungeon, I might need to move them further away so I can see stuff better. But I think this is a really good spot for how far apart they are. So these are all my offensive cooldowns. This was too much on the left, so I turned it right here. You can change these settings on these in the display options. You can change right here for the orientation to go from right to left instead of from bottom to top, or I guess from top to bottom how we had it. You can switch it to go from left to right, or I'm going to switch it to right to left. So, and that's going to be this is a shield that comes up on me. It's not going to be up on me for long, and it's just going to be gone, right? So I put that one there. These other ones I can see the durations on them. And then on the other side here, I had two similar abilities. Both of these are movement cooldowns. I'm never going to pop them at the same time because they really don't stack them like that. So I'm going to overlap them here so that right here is going to be my movement speed going faster thing. Awesome, great. Now, one thing, if you notice, they're not the same height, which bothers me, but I don't want to have to go through and meticulously in it. When this is now, we're going to be polishing off and moving some things around here in a very efficient way. So what you can do here with all of these, I'm going to go into all of these, and I'm going to select them all except for Fleshcraft. I'm not going to mess with that one right now. I want to look at this one, and I want them to be this height of the Dancing Rune Weapon. So I'm going to go to this one, and in its display, I'm going to look to see what its settings are. So it's X offset off to the left over here is that. I'm not worried about the X offset because I'm not going to move each one meticulously. I just want to get them all the same height. So the height right now, the Y offset, we're going to have it be 26. Okay, so 26 is the Y offset. Now I'm going to select all of them. So I'm going to hold down. I'm going to select the top one. All these are the same. And in fact, I'm going to move this Fleshcraft just up a little bit so he's not with the group. So I'm going to select the top one, not including Fleshcraft. Now all the way to the bottom one, hold down the shift button and click. It selects them all. And now you see when things go blue here, that means that certain things, if things aren't blue, like this right here, that means they have the numbers for all of this. So they all have a width of 25, they all have a height of 132, that's all great. If they're different, that would be blue, and if you change it, it would change all of them. So the X offset, I don't want to change the X offset because then they're going to all smush and overlap each other. I can change the Y offset though to just make them all the same height. We said 26, I think, so 26, enter, and now they all jump to be the same height across the board. And that's a very quick way for me to get all those done now, and those are now all done. Now, one thing I want to do, that same thought process here, is what I'm about to do is I'm going to squish these down to be a little bit more horizontal. I like the look of that instead of being all squared and blocking. Right now, this is taking up a lot of space. Like, all of this is taking up a lot of space right now. So I'm wanting to condense this down and make these smaller. So in general, I like these to be the biggest, but I do like them to be a little bit more rectangular. You'll see if you like that look too, and you can do it yourself. But I also like to have these outside buttons be a little bit smaller too, because right now there's just a lot of buttons, and I like it to be a little bit more minimalist. And I usually also have some tiny buttons down here, which is what I'm going to do with these three. So I'm going to make some more changes real quick, fast forward version, and then I'll show you how to tweak some stuff around. Also, for some thought strategy here, all of these, like I said, that's my A button, this is the caps lock button, and this is the tab button. Yes, I have things bound to tab and caps lock. So all you can do is have a macro keyboard, so you just switch caps lock to something different, so you're not always having to type in caps. But that's a story for another time. So I'm just going to slide these over. So I'm still going to get that same mental benefit of having them be in a row, to where my vampiric blood's right here, and then we keep going across all the way. And I'm going to keep moving all these things over and get my mind freeze and asphyxiate in here into the rotation section, because they're big, and that's going to be important for me to see. But these now are going to be not as important for me to see, and I'm actually going to move these buttons down to the bottom here. I'm going to center them and stuff, but now they'll be down on the bottom, so then they'll be a lot smaller. I'm also switching this taunt over here because my bindings for our Z, X, and C on my keyboard are right here, Z, X, and C. So visually, I am going to be able to think of them like the same way that I see them. Now what I'm going to do for organizational purposes, what we're going to be sorting things out here, is these are my core rotational abilities. They're going to look different than these ones on the side, so I want them to be first in this list. So I want Vamp Blood to be right here. I'm going to find Death Strike. I'm going to drag it up here. And also, just a real quick tip for this is whenever I have something down here for like Blood Boil, you could go to the top and how do I scroll? I just mouse wheel scroll at the same time. So while you're holding down left click to drag and move it, you can mouse wheel scroll through this list and kind of get there as well. So I'm going to organize all these in order. And I'm going to grab these very, very bottom ones right here, and I'm going to move those to the very bottom. Okay, now this is a little sneak peek of how we're going to be organizing all of these at the same time. But if you look here, if you notice closely, we'll zoom in on this. Will's my video editor. If you notice right here on these, there's a gap. There's a gap between all of these. It looks really nasty. And I want this to be equally spaced, and I don't want there to be gaps in between it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the width of each of these by 1. So I can easily do that by selecting Vampiric Blood, which is the farthest left, and selecting Asphyxiate by holding Shift down, and I select them all at the same time. Now I can go to width, and it all says it's 34, but I'm going to change it all to 35. They all just get a little bit wider now, and I can go in and manually change them all. 1 second. And when I'm doing this, all I'm caring about, I'm just nudging them over to where they just touch each other, and I am getting it to where I don't care about the height right now. I don't care about the vertical height. I just care about the left and right parts. Turns out they need to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go 0.5. Okay. Okay, great. They're all the same now. So now here's what I'm going to do to make them a little bit more rectangular and save some space. So I'm going to select that same range again. Oop, not Death Grip. I'm going to hold down Control and click Death Grip, and it unselects it. So if you hold down Control, you can individually select ones. Hold down Control, individually deselect ones. So anyway, I've selected all of these right here. And now I'm going to go to their height, and I'm going to make them a little less rectangular. So 35 is their width. I don't want to make it too freaking look weird. So I'm just going to go 26. And that looks a little bit too distorted. That looks a little bit too flat. So I'm going to bring this back up to 28. Still looking a little flat. I'm going to bring it to 30. And that's looking fine right there. So they're a little bit flatter just to kind of keep things in line a little better. And now I'm going to all making them the same Y offset. The Y offset right now, in fact, I don't want to go too crazy. So I'm going to select one of them. one of their Y offsets is -172, and I'm going to set this one. So I'm targeting Abomination's Limb. I'm going to set it to where I want it. I want it right there. So that's 170, and I'm going to delete that 0.4 just because I'm OCD like that. So -170. So again, I'm going to select Vampiric Blood and down to Asphyxiate, and then change all of the Y offsets to 170 and -170. Put the negative in there. That matters, and there they are. They're all balanced. I spaced them left and right, and now I shunted them all to the same that way, and I can move this health bar back up again now. So now this whole middle section right here is looking great. I actually love exactly where this is at. We are locking this in. All this up here looks in, but this is just a little big and a little sloppy. So I'm going to do some math here for you, so stay with me. I was a math teacher for 11 years before I went to do this full time. So I got you covered. I'm going to look for the heights, because right here, what I want, and we'll zoom in on this, for the heights here, I want these buttons to match up and be the same. So I want it to look like this. I want these to all be clean right here. So I want to know what the height of all this is. So, and I want it to be the same. So this height here is 30. The resource bar here is 24. 30 plus 24 is 54. So the total height of this section is 54. But I want to fit two things here. So 54 divided by 2. In my head, I think half of 50 is 25, half of 4 is 2. So that's 27. So I'm going to go to this one and this one, and I want the height of both of these to be 27. So if I go to Death Grip and Gorfine's Grasp, these two, I'm going to go to the height of these and be, what did I just say? 27. Half of 54 is 27. So I go 27, enter, and then the width is going to be 27, enter. And now they're nice and tiny. Look how cute they are. But I guarantee you, if I put them right here and I put it right here, they match up perfectly. And now they are the same height and size as this, and whenever I use them, I can see them right here, and it all fits nicely. So now I know, for the balance of the screen purposes, 27 by 27 are these two little heights right here. So I'm going to go over here to all of these, and I nicely can do that because I already have them all organized. So I Death Grip Gorfine's Grasp right here. I'm going to select Anti-Magic Shell, and I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, including these actually. I'm also going to include these as far as the size goes, and hold Shift all the way. So every single thing else besides this core rotation right here is now going to be 27 by 27. All right, so now I'm going to position this in that same spot in the same way that I did the other one. So now we are even with the Vampiric Blood, and I want to put all of the rest of these even with this one now, so I can move them all over. And for this one, all I need to do for the vertical ones is position them vertically to match up. And then once they match up vertically, I can make them all be even horizontally. And I'm also, for this real quick, I'm going to show you a different way to do this. So I want to select Dancing Rune Weapon. I'm going to hold down Control and click Tombstone, Anti-Magic Cell, Icebound Fortitude, and I'm going to release Control and scroll up because I don't know what that might do. I'm going to find Fleshcraft, hold down Control again, select that. So I've selected just these ones. I could put them in order right now, but I'm just kind of show you all this way. And I want to have them be the same as Anti-Magic Shell. So if I select Anti-Magic Shell, which I probably should have done first, its X offset right here, its X offset is -156. Okay, so its X offset is -156. I'm going to select them all again, and I'm going to change all of their X offset to -156. And now they are all nice and clean and perfectly stacked together. I'm going to do the same thing right here. I'm going to get the Anti-Magic Zone and put it right next to it. And actually, interestingly enough, I can do this. I can look at the Anti-Magic Shell, see what its Y offset is, -172.64. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that and copy it. And that's what I'm going to make the Y offset of this guy. Now they're the same height. I can make sure to position them to be the same here, and we're good to go. So now I know 183, we're going to make that a 0.5. Does it still look good? Yes, it does. So 183.5, I'm going to highlight this, copy it, and then I'm going to position these just to be touching it vertically, and that looks good. And touching this one vertically. Oh, one more. There we go. That doesn't matter. And then get them all even this way. Got it. And now I'm going to take Raise Dead, hold down Control, Lichborn. I already have Anti-Magic Zone, so I don't need to do that one. I will just for the sake of this. I grab all of those. Awesome, cool. I go to the X offset. I copy and paste that thing in there, and now they're all the same. For the last three at the bottom here, I'm going to see this one's going to be the one in the middle, so I'm going to go to its X offset and put that at 0 because I want it to be in the middle, and now I can just bounce it up to the top here. I can move this over to the side here to line up with it since we're horizontal. I line them up horizontally. Y, and then I can make all their Y values the same as Wraithwalk. Wraithwalk's Y value is this. I'm just going to be super efficient at this point. And I'm going to select this advance and Dark Command and copy paste in that height. Boom, there's the height. Now I'm going to fix this mount button right here, also just for the reference of this mount button. And if you want to check out my dominoes video, I don't know which one I'm going to make first, but you can look for my dominoes video, and if not, it'll be in the description. This is my mount, and whenever I enter combat, you see how it disappears? I love that, and I love that for mount buttons in general. And whenever I leave combat, it's going to come back up. And that also helps me know when I leave combat as well. So I love this for that. So I'm going to go to my dominoes bar, and I'm going to put this back where it originally was, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than it was, because I like it to be about the same size as my actual health bar, which is kind of big, but then that's fine because this is only showing out of combat. So I'm going to put it right here, put it right next to my health bar, and then we're good to go for that. Great. And this is out of combat, and when I attack something, I'll go back in. So cool. All right, now the last thing we have to do here is our blood tap. It's the one thing I said was a little bit specific, and is the one thing that I said is I do want to show you guys these progress bars. These progress bars here, in general, I use these on my Discipline Priest for the Word of Radiance. So there's 2 charges to it, and I want to see them on a bar to where I can see one, I can see the other, and if I use one, it's going to, I guess I have to reverse my hands for this. So if I use one, it uses up, and then it can charge up, and if I use another one, it's charging up, and this one will be at 0, and this one will charge up. So you can see when both charges are back to full, right? So I want to do that for my blood tap. Death Knights have 2 charges of blood tap, and they share a cooldown. You can charge it back up, just like lots of things have 2 charges that fuel back up. I don't care to necessarily do this with rune tap because I honestly don't use rune tap all that much. But blood tap, I do want to see blood tap so that I can get those runes back, and I want to position it next to my runes so I can see them better. So for the first charge, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to put rune blood tap 1, and then let's drag this on down here, and I'm going to put this blood tap, I'm going to put it above my rune bar, right? So the temporary bar I'm going to be deleting here in not too long, but I do want it to be the same color as this temporary bar. I wish there was a way to copy the color here, but I just like to look at it right there, and then I'm going to go here, get the bar color, and it's going to be the same. Okay, so now how this thing works, just so we're all synced up here, is if we go to the trigger, it's tracking Power Word Radiance right now. Nope. I want to track blood tap. Blood tap. Enter. Now it's tracking blood tap, and you see it picked it up right here. Everything's always the same. We don't have to do anything else with the triggers. That's very simple. The conditions look really complicated, right? And they actually have commands in here to where it sets everything up. So you don't have to worry about any of this. Just pay attention to the charges. For the condition 1 this is again the first one here. For the condition 1, the charges are less than 1, which means this is the first charge, right, of this ability. This ability has 2 charges, but we're only focusing on the first one. Charges are less than 1, it's going to run this custom code. Leave it alone. I don't even know what that code means. The second charges is going to be if it is less than or equal to 1, it's going to run this code, and that's how it works. And that's as simple as, you don't even need to know how the rest of it works, but this only works for something with 2 charges, and this is the first of those charges, right? So anything with a charge system, this is the first of those charges. All right, so then now, cool, there's that one. So now I'm going to go grab the second one up here, and I'm going to duplicate this one. Duplicate it. I'm going to call this blood tap 2. That's already exists, so I'm going to do blood. There we go, grabbing it down here, putting it right next to it, and I do the same thing. I go to the triggers, and all I have to do is update the trigger to blood tap, and it's going to watch those. And now I do need to change the color for the display. The display color, I do need to change that, make it red like all the other ones, and now we're good. All we have to do now visually is change what they look like. And if you can see them, here they are. I was like, where'd they go? All right, cool. So they're right here. Now if I exit the screen, okay, I need to fix this real quick. Anytime you don't see them, anytime you see them right here and you back out of this and they're gone and you're like, wait, where are they gone? I messed around with this all the time when I was learning how to do all of this. So I'm gonna hold down shift and select both of them. I'm gonna go to load. And if you look in the load section, you see how it says player class priest? It means it's only loading if your class is a priest, which in this case it's not. So I'm going to have this be, and I'll talk about the loading things at the end of all of this. So now we are good, and they should be there, and now there they are, okay? They're yellow though, that's a problem. So now this is another bug that runs up, so I'm going to reload. Wow, people, I just learned some stuff. This was fascinating. So turns out this is a lot easier than it actually is. So I created 2 test ones right here. I'm going to hold down shift, select these, and delete all of those, and go back to these 2. Now, the problem was it kept turning yellow. Like, obviously it's red, but then whenever I back out of this thing, let's wait for the cooldown. Yeah, there we go. See, it's yellow no matter what I did. So what this is the conditions here. So in these conditions, I just deleted all of the conditions, which is when it was down this doing this gradient thing. Apparently the conditions were only messing with the gradient, and this fancy code that I couldn't understand was just messing with the gradient. So if I delete those off entirely, then they're good. Now, it might not look good right now, but you'll see. And you see once I move them, it shakes them out of that gradient, and now they're back to red. And whenever I actually use these abilities, they're going to be still red. So you see how it all looks now. So now we can finally position them where I want them. So what I do is, this is my first charge and this is the second charge, and that's already taken care of in the first thing over here. Because if you look back here and you look at the trigger, where all the magic's happening is inside here. So these extra options tracking charge 1, this is where it's tracking charge 1. You see it is tracking the charge of cooldown 1. And then it's always showing. In here, this is tracking number 2. So we don't need any conditions. These are where these things are being tracked in the cooldown within these things. So now what I want to do is I want to take both of these and I want to place them right here and here. So shout out to my friend Darkmech, another World of Warcraft YouTuber. He has this setup where he has his rune bars and then he has his blood tap bars right here and here. So basically these two center bars is going to be there, and those are my 2 charges. Blood tap gives you runes back, and these are runes. And so I thought it was a very beautiful fit for it, and I'm going to put it right there just like he did. And oh my god, I just realized if I highlight 2 things, I can make them the same color. How beautiful is that? I can actually just make them the same color. So we're going to go here, and they're going to be a little bit darker and cool. So a little trick I'm doing right now to be able to position these, because as you see when I bring up the Weakauras, I can't see them anymore, and like we already talked about why I can't do that. So I am going to position my background around me so that I can do this. So we'll zoom in on this again. I am positioning this brown line of the ground to line up with where this rune starts. So I'm going to line it up right there. So I see the ground, and I can now position this based off the ground. So whenever I bring up the Weakauras, I know I can position this one. I go grab it. I can position this one to where the ground is, and I can go down a little bit maybe, and then whenever I bring it back, now I see that they're lined up pretty nicely. I could probably go one more scooch to the right and then bring it up a little bit. One more scooch to the right, bring it up some, and we're going to be like right there, and look at it again. I can go down now, so and I can go down probably like four clicks, and then we're in a great spot. And now I just got to bring this in, and I'm going to use the same trick right here to line it up with the inside of the sheet. And then I go back to the Weakaura, and I'm going to hold this. I'm going to hold down shift so I can see better. And I'm going to move it to where it lines up with that brown spot of the wood. I'm going to release shift and then let go. And now we're checking, and it looks pretty good. Look at that right there. Now I'm going to bring it in just one more notch. It's going to be a little bit smaller, and I'm going to make this the same. So, and I can even make that even simpler. So I'm going to grab the outside here and then go in one more notch. Okay, great. So now I want this bar to be the same as the other bar. So we're going to have both of these on here. I want to see where the Y height is of this bar. So I'm going to go to display. I'm going to see the Y offset is 0.
The number you have dialed is not...
Oh, that confused me. I'm looking at the spark settings. This is the spark that has that little line. The spark is that little bar that's filling up in the center, that little white vertical line inside. So down here, the Y offset is right here. So I'm going to highlight that Y offset, go to this blood tap, put in this Y offset, and copy paste that in there. And I want to also steal its width and height. So its width is really the thing I care about the most right now, is copying that width and go over here to this width and paste that width in there, enter. Now I'm going to scoot it over to the left over here and get them to where about they'll be. And let me just double check this. And oh my gosh, I mean, I think that's pretty good. I think they're a little bit, I'm going to scoot this one over a little bit more to the left, and we're good. And there we go. Now I have my runes and everything. So I have all my runes I'm attacking with. If I want to use up my runes right here, I'm using them all up. Oh no, I'm out of runes. I can scroll my mouse wheel up, and there we go. And there's more runes. And now for the finishing touches on this whole thing is right now, if we were to run this, is if you look at the load conditions, the load conditions is the final thing, so this doesn't screw up all of your other characters. This would load right now, all of this entire UI right here would load for every character that you run. And it'd be very confusing, and you'd be like, wait, why do I have all my Death Knights things? And it's all nasty and stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this entire thing, like this entire group right here. I'm going to go to load. And as you see, there's certain things in red, certain things in blue, and this is grouping them all together in the same way that this is effectively me doing this. Remember the thing where I did and I highlighted them all? If I went all the way to the bottom, it'd be the same thing as me highlighting every single one of them, right? Which is what I want in this case. I want to highlight the group. And as you see, it outlines the group. So I also nicely now as well, if I wanted to scoot this up or down, I can scoot this up or down. I can inch it up and down in the group settings. If I back it over here, I can actually scoot this down, and I kind of do want to scoot this down a little bit to be about right here. Time out. I just realized something I almost left out, which is a huge thing for Death Knights, and maybe it is for your class as well. But I'm going to go through here, and there's Death Knights have to keep Bone Shield up. So Bone Shield is a hugely important thing for them, and I'd have no way right now through my Weakauras to track that, and I need it to be one of the most important things that I can see in the dead center of my screen. Whenever I do bones, now you see how there's this number 3 right there, and now it's 6, and now it's 9. Great. And now as I'm attacking, and I could do it again and it goes up to 10, this is tracking my stacks. And as you notice, it went from red to green, because also for Death Knights, not to talk your ear off about Death Knights, you want 5 or more stacks of your bone shields, because you get benefits whenever you're above 5 stacks. So I want that number, this 10 right here, I want that to be red when it's at 4, 3, 2, or 1, or none, obviously. And I want it to be green if it's at 5 or higher, so that I'm like, okay, it's fine now. But also right now, there's another problem, is that if I'm in combat and I don't have any stacks on me, that's a problem, and I want that to be a really big problem, but we're going to handle this here in a second. So how I made this whole situation, bringing back up the Weakauras, I now also added into the base UI setup right here, number of stacks, as you will see. I'm adding to this as we make the video. So number of stacks, you can now copy this, duplicate it out and everything, and bring it down here. So this number of stacks is going to be a %S, and as you see here in the display text, it's going to be these stacks. You could have this, you could change this to P if you want to see progress, or the name, or whatever's going on here. It's going to start off as a P, but you just have it as an S, and we are good to go. So you can change the text here if you want, change the size of it. It's all right there. That's really the only settings you need to change. The trigger is the aura of the player's buff being Bone Shield, because it does track my Bone Shields up here. It is a buff that you get, and it's tracking the Bone Shield. That's all I have here for the trigger. But if you go to conditions, I'm now changing the condition to change the color of it. So if, because the default color of the number is white, but if I want it to be certain colors at certain ranges or whatever, because they matter. At less than 5, I want the color to be red. So for the if 1, the trigger 1, the only trigger we put in here is the stacks, or is the buff, and I'm tracking the trigger 1's total stacks. And if the trigger 1's total stacks are less than 5, then the color is going to be red, and I just set that color. Cool. For condition 2, its total stacks is bigger or equal to 5, because if I just put greater than 5, then 5 is excluded, and then 5 would be white out of nowhere randomly. So I also want to equal 5. So 5 or higher is going to color it green, and then that's it. Super simple. And then now I have everything all baked into one number right there. Good to go. But I also want more than that. I want to add, I'm going to do a new aura. I'm going to do this here with you guys. A progress texture, this little progress texture thing. I want to also add this and make it look like, and this is going to be bone, shield, aura, and I'm going to have this be the right side of the aura. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. And now I'm going to go to display, and if you want to add any aura displays, you have all this stuff here for progress settings, and I'm going to go here and you can select, click that little folder, and you can select from a lot of options here what that's going to be. But give me some time here, 1 second. Also, really quick, I realized the difference between progress texture and texture. Progress texture has a bar to where it shows the image, but then it desaturates like a progress bar. The progress bar depletes as it goes in. The progress texture also depletes as it goes in. I don't want that. I want a normal texture. And then I click this little folder right here, and I'm in the same spot. All right, so how would I want the look to be? I do the same thing on my Demon Hunter for his demon spikes. I like it right here. The number's going to be right there. The spikes are going to be right there. Cool. And then I can go to that same thing. The aura is the player buff, and I'm going to have the name of this buff be Bone Shield. And I usually do like to go down here and click Own Only, but maybe that doesn't matter. Condition 1, if the triggers is total stacks, and we do the same thing like I just said. All right, let's test it out now. So I get into combat. Here we go. And then I Bone Shield, and there we are. 3. I got it. It's looking good. It's red now. It's green. All right, we're fine. And now it's green, and I know we're good. And if it ever goes to red, I can press the button again, and then we'll go back to 10. Okay, cool. And for this last one here, I'm going to make custom on this for y'all as well. I'm going to add in a new aura, and I'm going to have it be a text. And the text is just going to literally be the number 0. And I'm going to click accept. You have to click accept within here. The text thing's weird. So it's going to say 0. In fact, I don't even know if I want the backspace there. So it's 0. Okay, and I always have my numbers be this font right here. The size of this thing is going to be massive. How big should this 0 be on my character if I don't have any bone shields? I'm going to literally put it on my actual character. It's going to be huge like this. Okay, great. Great. And the text color is going to be red always. It's always going to be red. That's a big problem. I don't have any bone shields. That's a huge. So X offset, I'm just going to have it be 0 just to make sure I'm in the center, even though honestly, okay, right now if I left it alone, this whole thing would be, oh, and then let me title this thing Bone Shield. If I left this out alone right now, it would just be a constant red 0 in the center of my screen. I've done nothing. So far, this Weakora is just a 0. I got to go to triggers, though, and I needed to track my actual buff. So the name of the situation is going to be Bone Shield. Now it's tracking that I have the Bone Shield buff, okay? But I'm going to go all the way down at the very bottom, and it says Show On, and if it has found the aura. I'm going to switch that, because you could say Always. Technically, actually, I was wrong before. So since I had this buff says Aura's found, this red 0 would only be there if it sees that aura. So if I have the aura of any stacks, there's going to be a big 0, which is not what I want. I only want it to show on aura missing, meaning I don't have the aura that I just talked about up here, which is Bone Shield. So if the aura is missing, it's going to show up. Great, awesome. Now, as soon as I have the aura, we're good. Now the problem is that if I don't do anything else, there's just always, no matter what, since I don't have, you're walking around town, you don't have this buff on you. So I need to go to load here, and I need to go to in combat and turn it only showing off green. It only shows up, it only loads when you're in combat and not when you're not in combat. And the last thing I'm gonna do to add some extra flair here, again, shout out to Dark Mech for seeing this, and I saw this on the screen. And when I watched his stream, I saw the little 0 bouncing. I was like, oh my gosh, it's telling me it doesn't have any bone shields. Walks in, bone shields, and it goes away. Love that, love that. And then, so we're gonna go to type, and we're gonna go to preset type, and that's going to be a bounce. And then the main action it's gonna do is going to be a preset, and it's just going to bounce. And it's when it finishes and it's done, it's just gonna bounce. So now it's gonna bounce all over the place. So now it's not there right now because I'm not in combat. But if I go into combat and I enter combat, and now, oh god, it's bouncing in. Okay, there's a 0. Hey, you don't have any bone shields. You don't have any bone shields. And then I do it, and now it has bone shields. Awesome, great. All right, now I did just test something out real quick. I didn't like, no offense to Dark Mech, I didn't like that start and finish, how it like took a second. When I entered combat, it took a second for it to like bounce in. I want to be alerted right now, hey, you don't have bone shield. And as soon as it's done and you do have bone shield, I don't need it to do the fancy animation out. So start, main, and finish. These start animation is some sort of thing that happens like at the very beginning, and it's something that happens in. I don't need any of that fluff. I'm cutting out none. This is just gonna be a preset bounce. So now this is how it looks. I am in combat. Okay, cool. Enter combat. Hey, 0's bouncing. And I press and it's gone. I think that's a lot better. I like that. It's a little bit clean. Okay, cool. So now we have everything we need to be able to show you the final part here of all of these Weakauras. I'm going to select all of the Weakauras all at once here. I got my bone shields, I got my bouncing 0, I got everything going. What's going to happen is I need to go to the load settings for all of it. Now, you see up here how it says in combat, the in combat's in blue and green. I'm leaving that alone because there's one thing of all the stuff I just made, that last thing I just made is a combat only. If I change this, it's going to change them all to in combat, and that's not what I want, right? So you'll have to go individually if you want to change specific things. So I'm leaving this alone, but in all of this, these three right here is what I'm going to change. This one I'm going to change to never load in a vehicle. This one, never in a vehicle. And this one, never during a pet battle. These are the three. I always have these in every Weakora I do. That's just going to be, unless you specifically have something for vehicles or pets or something. So that's always going to be there. And then player class. All of these are a player class of Death Knight, right? And for how I'm specifically running this is my blood setup. So I want my talent specialization even within this to be blood, right? So all of these are set up for that. Now I go all the way down through here and we're good. Now, in general, there are some abilities in here. And now whenever I go to my other characters, it's not going to load. And I almost forgot to go back down here to this temporary bar, delete that temporary bar because I don't need it to be a placeholder anymore. And now I look at everything and it looks great. I can now go to my dominoes action, set the fading on this bar all the way down to opacity or only for mouse over. So now it only comes up if I mouse over it. And now look at this UI. Oh, wow. So this is the UI now that's going to be at the very beginning of the video that I said I didn't know what it was going to look like. Here it is. So there we go. Now if I go in here and start messing with these target dummies, I can see all my abilities. I can start using stuff. I'm going to Death and Decay. I'm going to have all of my abilities going off cooldown. I'm using my AoE abilities. I'm interrupting. All these are stuff are going off cooldown. I'm taking some damage. I'm popping my cooldowns. I got my AMZ down. All my cooldowns are here. I see what's going on. Oh, I can pop everything I want, and everything's popping up where I want it to. Oh, Dancing Rune Weapon. And I can actually Dancing Rune Weapon and get this going. And I can see myself building up the time on it, because that's another thing with Death Knights. Oh, and see the glowing blood boil down here? That was glowing, so I know to press it. Everything's looking and feeling real nice. And I see my rune bar. I can rune strike, and then it fades whenever I know I can't blood strike anymore, so that looks great too. It's glowing on Death and Decay, so I have my proc, and I'm going to use my free proc. There it is. And it's glowing on this to use it. So all the things I need to use right away are able to use, because it's alerting me and like, hey, go. Time out again, because I got something else for you that I don't want to leave out any options, because I'm even thinking and adding these into my system as well. I think I'm going to use this second one more so than the first, but there's different ways for you to track your cooldowns as far as these big important tanking cooldowns, damage cooldowns, healing cooldowns, whatever type of cooldowns you want to track. The big ones, right? Not like your rotational type things here, but things here. These are a little small, and maybe sometimes you want to have them be a little bit bigger. Again, these little bars only come up whenever things are active. So if you want to put something here or in the inside line, or maybe you want to put what I'm about to show you right here. Here's how you can handle and track cooldowns a little bit easier. I'm going to use Icebound Fortitude here. So this is, we're talking about this Icebound Fortitude, this little guy right down there. I'm going to be able to see if it's up or down or not. But again, I might change to this update, because I do kind of like this. I tried it out in Classic WoW and I really did like it. I'm going to duplicate this, and this is going to be called Icebound Fortitude Available. What this is going to be is, this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to pull this up here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, because this is only going to be available, and that's maybe a little bit too big for the sake of this. I'm going to put it right here, and you'll see what I'm doing with this here in a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here. The only option I'm changing from the original option that I had down here for all of these that you've seen me make so far is going to change this show. Instead of it always showing, it's only going to show whenever it's on cooldown. Instead of showing always, it's only going to show whenever the ability is not on cooldown. So right now, the ability is not on cooldown, meaning I am available to use it. It is up. I can use Icebound Fortitude. So if I'm in here attacking, I'm doing stuff, I'm getting my bone shields up because of the bouncing zero, all that stuff, right? I'm doing my thing, and I know that this is available right here. I can use Icebound Fortitude right now, and it's gone, right? It is no longer available, and then here's my bar that tracks it. I still have the buff on me for 3, 2, 1, and done. It's gone, right? Now, down here, really nice and tiny, I see the remaining duration on it. Me personally, I do want to see that. I do want to see this remaining duration right here. Now, let's see the third option here, the third and final option here, unless I can remember something else. I'm trying to help you guys out as best I can, though. So I'm going to make a Weakaura right now. I'm going to duplicate this again, and this one's going to be called Icebound Fortitude Ready. It's going to be off cooldown now, but this is a moment, because right now I'm probably in the middle of combat, in the heat of battle. I'm not going to see this tiny little 2, which is my worry and my concern. Maybe I glance at it and see it has a minute left, 30 seconds left, or something like that. Sure. I don't really know when it comes back, exactly when it comes back, because I might have a bunch of other stuff going on, and maybe I want something in my face. So what this is going to do is, again, the display is all the same. Everything's the same across the board. One thing I do like to add in for this, though, is I like to change the alpha to 80%, because I do like to see, well, sure, 81. I do like to have this be a little bit see-through, and I'm going to take this and put it in the dead middle of my screen and make it freaking huge, probably about that big, and put it in the middle of my screen. Again, if you go to display, you can go over here to the X offset, change that to 0. Now it's actually in the center because I'm OCD. But this trigger moment here, instead of having it be cooldown charges or count right here, I'm going to change this thing over and have it be cooldown ready event. Cooldown ready event means that when it comes off cooldown, it's going to let you know. And I'm going to have this be a timed duration of 2 seconds. Okay, so now when this comes up in 30 seconds, there's going to be a big, huge square of an Icebound Fortitude symbol that pops up in my screen, stays there for 2 seconds, goes away. You can be the judge if it's too long or whatever. And in fact, I'm going to be in combat, and we're going to cut to whenever it actually comes up. In battle, I'm fighting. Oh, it's back. and now it's gone. You see what I'm saying? So that right there lets me see it, and then it goes away. So then I am alerted, a little slap in the face, hey, it's back, and then I can use it. Now, it's up to you at this point. It's up to you at this point if this is good enough or if this is the better way to do it. How do you want to track your cooldowns? Try them both out. In general, I would probably do one or the other. I'm either going to have this down here, and then it slapped me in the face here with this little 2-second flash, or I'm going to probably... I don't know if I want to remove that, or I might not use this at all, and I'll have this up here, and I will know that I have this. Whenever I played Classic WoW for the little duration that I did, right here, I like to have all my cooldowns. Any sort of tanking buttons I had right here, any sort of offensive buttons I had right here, so that when I am in the heat of it, and I'm fighting and I'm doing stuff, I'm able to see, like, oh no, and I can glance over here, see if it's there, use it, and it's gone, and then there we go. See what I'm saying? All right, there we go. I did add both of these, the show available. All right, I did add both of these, the show when available only ability that only shows up right here whenever the thing's available. In combat, of course, which means I'm also going to go to this show when available only ability. And I only want this to show in combat. So I'm going to go over to load right here, and I only wanted these to show up whenever I'm in combat, because I don't want these to just always be on my screen because they are a little bit high up here for my liking. I'm going to only show them whenever I'm in combat. And I also added when the ability comes off of cooldown alert, so it's going to have the cooldown ready event, and it pops up there, so you can all grab these. Link for that's going to be down in the description. And if you want the entire thing for all of my characters, because I'm going to be getting all of my characters ready for Dragonflight with as many different things as I can, you can see whenever I live stream and other things like that. Join my Patreon, we can talk about it, and I might even be able to help you set up your own custom ones yourself. Okay, cool. Timeout over. So I really hope this helps. I have spent too many hours figuring out how to do all of this. It has not been easy to learn, and I hope that this video is in a very compact, efficient way has helped you learn. I'm going to make a video right now about a tour guide of how all certain things work and how these different add-ons work, to kind of walk you through it so you can understand it. Because as I built this during this video, some technical problems came up. Sometimes you have to reload the UI. Sometimes you have to check the triggers and conditions and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go into all of that in that video of just a basic tour guide tutorial. If that helps, I have a lot more add-on key bindings, gameplay videos I stream all the time on YouTube. So check it out. And if you go down to the description, there is going to be the DC WeakAuras setup right here, which has everything right here that you can easily right-click, copy, paste, move it on over. In fact, for this progress bar, remember all those conditions we had that messed everything up? We're going to delete those right now. So there we go. And you're able to grab everything you want. And this WeakAura, when you download this WeakAura package, it's going to pop in just like this, and you can do exactly what I did in the video. But if you want to go one step farther, support what I do here, and you want this exact WeakAura package, all of my WeakAuras for every single character and every single spec and all of that stuff, along with other add-on uploads, are always on my Patreon. Because my patrons are what makes things possible, I want to say thank you to all of them. So this whole entire WeakAura package is going to be available for the patrons, but in general, I want to make this available to you guys so you can customize it yourself. If you want to grab it and jump on from where I have it, cool. But if you want to make it from scratch for yourself, you have this whole option right here, and I really hope this little package helps you make some WeakAuras and make you have a nice, good looking UI. Got lots more coming. Stay creative. Think outside the box. Peace.